Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today, whether you are here or in person or attending online. My name is Dini Suryani, a researcher of Political Economy and Strategic Issues Research Group of the Research Center for Politics, BRIN. I'm honored to serve as the MC and moderator for this important session. Today, we'll be delving into the highly relevant and significant topic, the ecological, social, and economic impacts of the relocating Indonesia's capital to Nusantara or IKN. The guest lecture is part of a multi-year research project conducted by Professor Kei Otsuki from Utrecht University in the Netherlands, titled Following Frontiers of the Forest City. To begin our event, we will first have an opening speech from the head of the Research Center for Politics of BRIN, Dr. Atika Nur Alami. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Dini. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Prof. K. Thank you for your coming to our campus at BRIN, Gatot Subroto. This is your first time coming here, yeah? Okay. Okay, welcome to you all on our guest lecture on following frontiers in the Nusantara new capital city. It's a great pleasure to have you, Prof. Kei Otsuki, to share your insights with us today. And I think maybe you can just search her CV. Prof. Otsuki has expertise on sustainable development and forest issue. And hopefully you, Prof. Otsuki also will share your current project, yeah, on Nusantara capital city, which is, I think, really relevant to what we are doing now at the Research Center of Politics. Maybe let me just give you a brief introduction of our research center. Currently, we have 5 research cluster in the Research Center for Politics. The first research cluster is on foreign policy and international issues. The second cluster is on religion, ethnicity, gender, and politics. The third research cluster is on political representation, governance, and regional autonomy. The third cluster is on conflict, security, and defense issues. And the last but not least cluster is on the political, economic, and strategic issues. We become the host for our guest lecture today. And I think under the research cluster of political, economy, and strategic issues, we have a research team that focus on the natural resource governance, which I think in the last 3 years, yeah, conducted research on IKN, and currently BRIN, we have two international publication about IKN. Hopefully you already have the book, but actually I borrow it from my boss, so I have to return to him, yeah, the book, yeah, so I cannot give the book to you. I can just show it to you, yeah. We have to return to my boss with the book. So actually we have 2 publication. The first one, The Road to Nusantara, Process, Challenges, and Opportunities. We collaborate with ISIS, Yusuf Ishak Institute, Singapore, and we involve various researcher from different institutions, and Dini also, Mbak Septi, Dian, and also Imam, yeah, also part of the contributors of the book. So you can just find the book in the ISIS website, yeah. Okay, and the second one, I just promote the book, yeah, it's okay, yeah. Assembling Nusantara, it's about the mimicry, friction, and resonance in the new capital development. The editor is the Bu Heni, Mbak Lilis, and Mas Ivan. Mas Galuh, do you, part of the contributor of the book? Not yet, yeah, for this book, okay. Maybe the next book, because I think yeah, we expect to produce more publication on IKN, and I think we need to keep discussing about IKN in the midst of, you know, kind of a controversies and criticism on the development of IKN, because we think that the academic publication on IKN is still limited. So we need to, I mean, enrich the discussion not only from the political or the policy sides, but also from the academic sides, because we know that the development of IKN actually really has attracted, you know, kind of a growing attention among scholars and also maybe policymakers, because, you know, the relocation of capital city from Jakarta to East Kalimantan has, you know, kind of various impact in terms of the environmental impact and even socio-political impact. So in that sense, we think that keep discussing IKN from various sides, various issues really become, you know, our interest to contribute in the knowledge production regarding to the development of cities, and hopefully your you know, your knowledge and experiences in doing research on sustainable development, on city, on how to develop, I mean, the surrounding areas, really can, you know, can be useful for us and bring new insight to us. I think that's all that I can say. Again, thank you so much, Prof. K, for your coming and your insights that you will share today, and hopefully we can develop any further collaboration after this event. Maybe we can, you know, set up kind of a joint research or joint publication regarding IKN, and you can share also your current project on IKN. I think that's all. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Mas Rido and team, for preparing the seminar. Thank you also, Mbak Irin, and thank you also all the member of the EPIS research cluster. And hopefully the discussion will be productive and going smooth. Okay, although there has been there are demonstration outside. Actually, I want to join the demonstration at the MK and the DPR building, but I have to see you and hear you, so I can join the demonstration. Okay, that's all. Thank you so much for your coming. I return to Dini. Thank you, Dini. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Atika, for the opening speech. I agree that we should keep discussing about the IKN from various sides to contribute to develop the process of the relocating to the new capital city. Secondly, we will first sing the Indonesia Raya. For those who attending in person, please stand up for the national anthem. Please sit down. So we are very fortunate to have Professor Kei Otsuki with us, an expert in sustainable development and urban studies. Kei Otsuki is a professor of international development studies at Utrecht University. Her research interests center on the social equity and justice for sustainable development. Kei holds a PhD in development sociology from Wageningen University and MSc and BA degrees from the University of Tokyo, Japan. So today, Professor Kei Otsuki will share insights from her research. Her project aims to develop a framework for studying the emerging and future impacts of planning and building the forest city in Nusantara. The event will run until 12. Following Professor Otsuki presentation, we will have a Q&A session where you all are encouraged to participate, whether you are attending in person or via Zoom. So without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Kei Otsuki to begin her presentation. The floor is yours, Professor Kei.
Thank you. Is that okay? You hear? Okay. Thank you very much, Dini. Thank you very much, Director, of your colleagues from BRIN. Indeed, this is the first time I visit this building. It's nice, a nice opportunity. I'm just back from Samarinda, and before that, I was in Sepaku for about 10 days around the area of Nusantara. I did not go into the ceremony of IKN, but I was heavily affected by the traffic of all these delegations for presidents. I was witnessing all this in the surrounding areas in the past week. And what I'm going to talk about today is maybe a little bit based on observation so far, and also explain a little bit about our project, because this is not my personal project or anything. It is a very collaborative project. So I would like to share who are involved and how maybe you can also all be involved. The reason why I also met Dini in the Netherlands, that she came to participate in a workshop organized by all the colleagues of our team. So I think that's also important to mention. I am specialized in development sociology. So I'm a very social scientist, very based on the field research. I find empirical research very important. And now currently I am based in the Human Geography and Planning department of Utrecht University. But we continue with this social and environmental research together with the students, PhDs, postdocs. And I would like to give, discussion, maybe the food for thought, and we can share what else we can enrich from this conversation. Next, please. So the lecture is a part of the 4-year research project called The Following Frontiers of the Forest City Towards Sustainable and Inclusive Urbanization in Kalimantan and Beyond. I will explain why it's beyond. We are in 2024, so we are in the middle. We started 2022 officially. The academic partners are all Utrecht University and Gajah Mada University are the leading leaders. Let's say the Dutch part is led by Utrecht and myself. Gajah Mada University is led by Faculty of Geography and Forestry, actually, the Professor Ijanta. And then we have local partners from Lambung Mangkurat, in South Kalimantan. Institute Technology Kalimantan is based in Balikpapan. And then in the Netherlands, we do have a partner from Research Institute for Water Education in Delft, because we find that the new city is going to be vitally influencing the water system, which will affect heavily the frontiers that the city will expand. And I will explain a little bit about that. From the academic partners, we also find important to involve non-academic partners because they are the ones who are going to implement policies, talk directly to the government. And we have a partner from East Kalimantan provincial government and BRIDA, the research office over there. We also collaborate with Ministry of Environment, especially the Institute for the Peatland and Mangrove Restoration, because the city development will affect those ecosystems. We have a Dutch private partner from Royal Haskoning, which is the big civil engineering company that had an interest in investing in, and when we started to study the project, but now they are not investing. They are looking, seeing, waiting. So we will see what's going to happen. And this project is co-funded by the Dutch Research Council and WO. And well, I put BRIN there, but it used to be like a Ristek BRIN. So the Indonesian part had been before the BRIN was reorganized. That was the funder. And now the Indonesian partners are funded by, I think this year will be LPDP initiatives. And so the Indonesian part actually is a little bit changing the financial structure. So I also have to understand it. But the Dutch part is a Dutch science organization, and they are also very supportive of this collaboration. And apart from these official consortium members, we started to talk with, for example, University of Mullah Warman in East Kalimantan to collaborate further, and now here. So I'm very open to discuss for future collaborations in any ways. Next, please. So as Dini also mentioned, our research project has a main objective to establish a framework to keep on following frontiers of urbanization in East Kalimantan, because the city is just inaugurated on 17 August, but it was not the one-time thing. It's going to, well, let's see if it's going to grow or it's going to disappear. But in any way that we will have to monitor for the future of the region, especially in the context of the construction of Nusantara, in order to achieve ecological sustainability, especially disaster risk reduction and socioeconomic inclusion. So these are the kind of pillars that we establish with by involving various colleagues. And this was like a kind of first how do you say, like a published image of how it's going to look like in the future. And it will take quite a long time, I think, to get there, but we will, that's why we want to keep on following the frontiers. Next, please. And under this main objective, we do have specific objectives. And one is, of course, we are researchers, academics, so we, like our director also mentioned, the knowledge production is the main business. So we do generate knowledge on processes and impacts that a mega project such as Nusantara and its frontiers create beyond the planned project. And equally important for us is to develop capacity of local researchers and citizens by strengthening existing research infrastructure, such as local universities, BRIDA in the East Kalimantan province, because these are the ones that are there. They feel the impacts and they can analyze them very close to the areas. I'm from the Netherlands. I come and go. This is the second time I came, but I think it's vitally important to have more local researchers involved. The third is a multi-stakeholder platform to co-design tools to assess impacts and suggest short and long-term solutions to ensure sustainability and inclusivity of planned and also unplanned urbanization that we are going to observe in this area. And in this objective, this East Kalimantan provincial government is very crucial, but also students of the local universities are involved, some local entrepreneurs, companies. I think eventually we have to involve more people, but and there's also civil society organizations, indigenous communities. We will talk about it a little bit later. Next, please. Project structure, very quickly for you to understand how it works. So as I said, I'm not the only person who is doing this. I'm rather just coordinating the whole thing. There are lots of people involved. The Indonesian side is basically led by Gajah Mada University. They have 4 work packages. So one work package 1, 2 are pretty much about ecological mapping. So the city goes to the area where there are a lot of forestry concessions, conservation areas managed by Ministry of Environment. As I said, the water will be affected pretty much. So these are the kind of areas that our colleagues, especially Ari from Gajah Mada, is from forestry faculty, and she's leading work package 1 and 2 together with Universitas Lambung Mangkurat. And the work package 3 is more social. So we look into the impacts of the city development on indigenous communities, trans-migrant communities, Bugis from Sulawesi. So we identify different social groups there and then see what kind of impacts are there, especially when now that there are so many also construction workers coming from all over the place. They have some issues about how do you call it, extrajudicial marriages and all this kind of stuff. So I'm learning also how things are dynamically changing in social terms. And Utrecht side, we are having 2 main work packages managed by 1 postdoc and 1 PhD researcher funded by the project. And one is more about the investment frontiers, so how different investors come, and now we found out the investors are not really there, but people are speculating nonetheless on land and different resources. So we find it very important to follow those bottom-up processes of investments, especially also to understand how the local economy works. And work package 6 is directly about water, so about water governance, about water use, access, especially in relation to new dams and intake projects that the IKN brought to the area. And overall coordination is done by me and Rijanta, and that's the area where we also think about the collaboration with other stakeholders, other partners. So this is the kind of whole project structure, and what I'm going to talk about is basically based on my own fieldwork observation, but also in combination with everything I've learned by writing papers with everybody, discussing. We have workshops regularly, the national workshop in Indonesian and the Netherlands. So that is more or less how it has been developed in the project. Next, please. So in the first place, I want to talk about a little bit why I wanted to build this project and do it together with Indonesian partners, because I did my PhD research on Brazil. And in 1960, Brazilian government did move the capital city from Rio de Janeiro to Brasilia, almost exactly the same discourse. So bring the colonial past, to the new stage that we are going to bring our own city in inland to redistribute the wealth. We want to redevelop the undeveloped areas. So this was, Brazil is inland, Rio was the port. So it's a bit like like a Jakarta was built by the Dutch before, historically speaking. So it's a bit similar dynamics. And they also built a very modern, clean city, futuristic, let's say. And then they also had this very clear divisions between workers' areas, government officials will live here. So there was this idea already in the 60s. And I was very intrigued by the Indonesian announcement because, oh, this is the chance that I want to witness what's going to happen with this. Because, please, next, please. Because what happened in Brazil from the 60s is that when you move, so that the red circle is Brasilia, they move from Rio in the coast to the area. And of course you move, then you start developing the roads. So that go deep into, that was not a part of the planning, but that went deep into the Amazonian forest, which didn't have any road before. So there were indigenous communities pretty much separated. It was, well, pretty sustainable places, ecologically speaking. Next, please. But because of the road extension in the 1960s, led to an opening of a new highway. And this led to more roads, because if you open one road, of course, it's going to start developing different roads, official and unofficial. And that area started to rapidly expand. So the deforestation problem that maybe you have heard already in the media and so on since the 90s, 80s, 90s until today is pretty much led by this kind of relocation of the capital city and unplanned part of the planned city. And this was something that I was studying more about in relation to urbanization that followed in those deforested areas and how the environmental governance can be rebuilt in those areas. Next, please. So the knowledge production about frontiers of Nusantara is pretty much based on my interest in what happened in Brazil. Is it going to be reproduced or is going to be something very different? So now IKN is demarcated over very clearly an area of 36,000, well, at least on the map, and designed with clear boundaries, with zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. It's kind of very beautifully planned. But as long as I understood from all the researchers involved and as in my observation also, is that already frontiers of urbanization in the unplanned manners are happening. So we need to know what the expansion actually means for futures of the forest, but as well as people and places that had been already there. Next, please. And here I'm teaching in geography department, so I thought maybe I will introduce a little bit analytical framework that we are using in this in order to understand what this expansion means. So conventionally, urbanization is something understood as a very incremental process. So process from rural to urban. So rural villages start developing through agricultural development, and then infrastructure develops and the population grows. So people are usually portrayed as those changing from farmers to workers to service providers. So it becomes like a rural become urban. But in the Amazon situation already changed this perception of incremental urbanization. Next, please. So there is a theory already developed in the late 1990s about the frontier urbanization, which questions basically this assumption of very linear understanding of urbanization. So in one of the major works in this area, talked about the Amazon forest as a already very heterogeneous social place. So it's indigenous communities, maybe construction workers, people who had entered there as an extraction of forest, loggers, for example. These are not farmers in the traditional sense. So their urbanization then is already disarticulated from agricultural development and also incremental industrialization that goes to urban development in a conventional sense. So urban-rural analytical dichotomy does not really apply in this case, which means environmental change also is not about, farm development changes the dynamics of the forests or ecological system, but it is also related to more direct urban-based interests. Next, please. And we can apply this classic theory of frontier urbanization to IKN situation to some extent, in my opinion, because East Kalimantan is already a very socially heterogeneous space. As I mentioned, there is a Balik people or other maybe indigenous groups, transmigrants from Java from the 70s. There are lots of communities of these groups, other economic migrants from Sulawesi especially, and the new migrants with different entitlements to land and to forest. So they all have different claims to land, and they do have different title types. And in terms of agricultural development, Eastern Kalimantan has a very little agricultural development compared to Java, for example, that they don't produce rice, they all import. So there are agricultural development, industrialization, but persisting and expanding extractive economy. So oil and gas now in Balikpapan, coal in around Samarinda, industrial forestry, plantation economy of oil palm. These are all non-food based agricultural development, but they are a very extractive based economy. So it's disarticulated urbanization in that sense, and flexible urban rural extractive livelihoods and extraction of land value for most of the highest households as a consequence. And of course, IKN will create more urban jobs, so not directly contributing to agricultural development, but it's going to be leading to the sort of rapid urbanization, let's say. Next, please. But IKN poses a new challenge, theoretically and empirically. And I think that's where we can develop further our discussions. So my preliminary observation are like three challenges, but I already presented more or less the similar thing in Mula Warman, and there were more challenges that people started to talk about. So maybe you also have other challenges in mind. But one thing is, as I also a little bit mentioned, that both actually heterogeneous group of people and the extractive industry have their very clear but different land claims, boundaries, and it becomes very complex contestation situations. So it's not only that the city is going to affect those landowners, but the landowners and land users. This is the document shown by the Balik people who showed about different kinds of titles they have over there in relation to the concessions. Well, formerly in forestry concession, now it's taken directly by the IKN authority, so they have kind of started to reclaim the user titles, user land rights. And so the problem had been sort of discussed as because their title is Sego rights and not a clear ownership like Javanese transmigrants. So they started to have these discussions, but I think it will have more impact eventually, this kind of differentiated land rights, especially when the government wants to attract investments, because then the concessions, people have different accesses, user rights, then of course investors don't want to get involved in those kind of unclear situations. And this was also the landscape. We went to IHM industrial forestry part, because that is also now in dispute in a way with the IKN boundary. So they are overlapping. And transmigrant community actually also have the claim there. So they are now having also different disputes there. So there are different spots of land contestations which need to be understood better, I think. The next, please. And in relation to that, now land market is very volatile, especially for those who have the access to land. So Indonesian system, I'm pretty impressed actually with the land governance system, very formal, sophisticated land certification and valuing system, especially for calculating compensation when infrastructure comes. And this is the highway now that is being built to bypass, to go quickly from Balikpapan to IKN, bypassing some villages. But this kind of system of valuing land set by the rules, of course, raise people's experiences and calculations of capturing this value. So people start calculating, okay, you know, when this highway goes to this direction and my land is a bit close, or I will wait another year because then 1 million rupiah more that I can get. So they start having this kind of conversations about how much money they can get by selling or renting their land in relation to new infrastructure. And that would lead to the kind of new land market creation. Very interesting in terms of so-called everyday speculation of land by residents of the villages around the area. But again, in terms of investments, or how much that the people, or the especially investors, want to put into these areas, this kind of volatile land value dynamics at the local level would change quite a lot of dynamics at the prices of land and areas. The next, please. And the thirdly, as official mantra goes, this IKN will be a new smart and forest city. IKN authority has a vision very clearly written all over. It will be the global city of the smart and forest city. But there are two very specific challenges that we have to think about. Because one, smart city requires quite a lot of infrastructure, not within IKN, but beyond IKN, and lots of resources. Already, IKN is consuming quite a lot of building materials from Sulawesi, like sand, concrete. This is the company I took a picture from the IKN Expo around last week. And they are from Sulawesi, Morowali, those mining areas that are heavily exporting their materials for building infrastructure for IKN. And our researcher, one of the researchers, is also looking at the relationship with the nickel mining, because Sulawesi also is one of the world's biggest nickel producers, and that will be expected to increase not only for the world energy transition, but then also in relation to IKN's ambition of electrification, electrifying everything. You need batteries. Nickel is a vital mineral for all the batteries in the computers, phones, everything. The lithium-ion battery needs nickel. So Indonesia has a quite strategic resource, but also that means that in order to make everything electric, smart in IKN or new city, you will affect more and more mining in other islands. And that is, that requires more attention to sustainability in different areas, not only in the IKN. The ambition to forest city also is a very interesting one for us, because they say the city will restore 65% of the forest. So restoration requires lots of plantations, but then now they are only planting eucalyptus because that is the quickest seedlings they could get from the IHM, the industrial forestry company that is there. But we are all deeply concerned about this monoculturing of forests as justified to be used in the forest city mantra. So we want to also make sure to contribute to, okay, you know, how to mix different species, or how to involve more expertise in that area. And that, therefore, we are working with the Faculty of Forestry colleagues. But so these are the kind of challenges that we face in greening a city, sustainable city, but what that actually means in different areas. So sustainability in one area doesn't mean that the other areas don't get sacrificed. So that is, and also what do we mean by the forest, or what do we mean by green, smart? So these are the kind of challenges because the official version of it is that it will be all okay. Next, please. So in the end, what we want to do with those, addressing those challenges, go deeper into that, is basically to make sure the message come across, especially for authority like a national government, because lower levels, people are more or less aware of that. But also in the knowledge production, academic discussions, the bottom line is we have to be very clear that different groups of people are being impacted by the infrastructure development within and beyond IKN, especially in surrounding villages, and they are impacted differently, especially in relation to their land claims, in my opinion, but then also water access. We can go deep into that part if anybody's interested. And the impacts are changing over time, also in relation to the land market development that is affected by the infrastructure development, of course. And it is very important to keep following frontiers of urbanization, therefore, because it's going to be changing all the time. And we want to know exactly the impacts at one point are going to be negative or positive in the future. So we need some kind of following up over the years. So that ultimately, I think it's very important also to see this as not only in the IKN problem, but then it's in Kalimantan and also in relation to other islands. As I said, there will be more mining, there will be more migrants, migration, or out migration, maybe when the IKN is not going as well as people thought. Already Sulawesi people were talking about selling their land and going back to Sulawesi. So I think there are those relationships that we really want to know in order to establish that is it really for all the groups of people who are there. And for us, it's very important to frame this as urban frontier urbanization and also urban land development that is equal as much as possible for all the people. Next, please. So in order to do that, we have the second objective of research infrastructure development to make sure the local researchers can follow changing frontier urban land development. And these processes are basically, we have to follow in two ways, very official spacing term. It's in Brazil also is the same, so that's why I published once about it. In the case of Brazilian Amazon, that, okay, there is always this official version of, this is how the city will look like and the area will look like. And people, on the other hand, are continuously working on their land and the place. So we have to be following these two processes. And in order to do that, we have to be working with all this, especially the governance system changing in the frontier to coordinate between. So IKN authority, in my understanding, is more or less coming with this top-down idea of how the city should look like. But then the local officials and all the levels, province, village levels, even neighborhood groups, they have all their own planning, and then they have all their spacing in relation to this official spacing. So I think these interactions at different levels have to be understood better. Also, when we talk about this kind of local economic benefits and environmental governance. And by doing so, I think we can keep on addressing the problems or potential problems or inequalities which are already emerging. I took this picture to show that this is like a ministry house, like a minister housing, like a huge houses they are building within IKN, and there are so many construction workers coming from the different villages. But there is this huge discrepancy between, how the city is looking like for the officials and how the villagers are sort of treated as a laborers just to build, and then they have to leave afterwards. Next, please. Last year, I started to really talk with Brida head, Fitriansa, who is sitting in the left side from East Kalimantan province. And well, Rijanta is the right in the UGM. And we started to really shape a group of collaborators with the local to collect information, share information, also with all the stakeholders who approach the area. And Brida is now trying to sort of establish so-called Nusantara Research Center. I understood from local universities like Mulawarman that they also want to open up the new campus. UGM already has a new institute. So they are kind of trying to co-design like different ways, tools to follow frontier dynamics with all the researchers. So we are initiating not only how do you say, like a Nusantara website that only shows the ideologies and their master plans, but we want to make a kind of horizontal platform to collect more empirical evidences from different areas around IKN. So if you are also interested in joining, please, yeah, we can discuss. And I think BRIN is, of course, in a strategic position now that you are group of researchers with a clear expertise, but also mandate to do research in strategic projects, I guess, in Indonesia. So I will be very interested in talking about this, how we can collaborate further. That was it. Thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, I'm open, I'm here.
Thank you very much, Kei, for the important discussion on your project on IKN. So there are basically, so Kei was identifying some challenges that might or maybe now faced by the IKN development process. And there are some important findings from her research, including how the land change in that area and how IKN become very a powerful organization to organize the IKN itself. So from that discussion, I will open a Q&A session, both for the attending in person and for the Zoom participants. If you have any, please raise your hand. Maybe we can have 3 questions. Anyone? Mas Endik ya? Mas Endik, and any other person who want to ask? Mas Galuh? And is there anyone from Zoom? Not yet. Not yet. Okay. Or you want to talk directly, it's okay for the participants in Zoom. If you want to talk directly with Kei, you can raise your hand. So maybe we can have 2, first from Mas Endik and second from Mas Galuh. Please.
Okay, my voice is clear. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Miss Kei. Yeah, okay, I call you Kei. Okay, thank you about your research. I think it's good for new perspective from we are a research in IKN. But I have one question about the economic development in IKN country, because my last week I visited some university, but it's not Indonesia, and we are discussing about the topic of IKN, so especially in infrastructure and economic development, because in the new city we need some infrastructure like school and university, and the the idea of why we are open university in IKN. So the next question is, who is a student? Who is student? And it's like how about the urbanization? How about the people move from the main city, from the Jakarta and to the IKN? So I think it's like big problem, because many people not go to move to IKN, especially not the employment government, I think. So my question is, how long the IKN can be the real capital of Indonesia? Because it's like a forest and only monkey in the forest and not people. Okay, thank you.
Mas Galuh.
Okay, thank you so much. So thanks so much for sharing your very insightful presentation, Kei Sensei. So I think I would like to start my questions, also confirmation from your last slide about the co-designs with this Kalimantan province. It's very interesting one, because it gives you a kind of, mutual communication and dialogue between different stakeholders. And this is also part of the objective of your research project. My question is related to the understanding that actually we do understand that there is kind of different power asymmetries between general people and also people with power. For instance, in this case, you also mentioned that there are general people, I mean, and also there are people from, for instance, private companies like the extractive industries, and you also have people from the local governments who also have different kind of information, knowledge, and also power. I'm very interesting to know more about the, how do you, mediate those different kind of group of peoples with different kind of power? Because sometimes you have, general people who are basically probably they have something in their head, but they cannot say something because they are too shy, or they, they doesn't know to express their mind. How do you, address this issue? Because it's very important in my understanding to, to achieve this kind of land for all, or sustainable and also inclusive city with, engagement of all groups of people. That is my first question. And my second and also my last question is related to the, if you, for instance, read about the urbanization process in Indonesia, particularly those in, big, large and also metropolitan cities, it's very, apparent that actually the one who mostly produce large scale of land development are the private sectors, in particular real estate development. Do you see these signs have already, appear in KN? So there are people who have the power, have the money, and then they can just buy the lands from the people. Thank you.
Any other questions? Or yeah, I just let Kei answer those two questions.
Okay, thank you very much. What is your name first? Andi. And Endik. Endik. Yeah, people don't want to move to IKN. I can imagine because it's not a city yet. So like it's really not there yet, right? So our research is pretty much also focusing on the, how do you say, infrastructures that are built still ongoing around IKN, not so much inside IKN, because inside IKN, what the government has been doing so far is to build this palace and the houses and Swiss hotel, roads, that's it. So I can't even see the housing finished so people don't have anywhere to live. So of course they don't come. And then of course those, so campuses that our partner universities are talking about are mainly for research and not yet for education. And that's also very problematic in the sense that they are creating some kind of enclave. So the IKN is a kind of isolated city because Sepaku, the sub-district that is a part of that gave land to IKN basically, they have a senior high school. They have, but then the IKN people don't want to develop that. It's not far. It's like 10 minutes by motorbike, but you can't. There is a total detachment from what the local infrastructure that is already there, and the IKN development is something totally new. So I think, of course, university is another level, but at least the schools are there. But it's something that people like IKN authority or the national government don't really want to talk about, to link, how much, okay, these are very poor villages or low level, I don't know. But I think that is already pretty much a problem because they can actually raise the whole area together, to urbanize the whole area in such a way that both IKN officials and the people around those areas can benefit. But I think I don't see any discussions. And that's the problem with the local government officials that are also expressing increasingly uneasy feeling towards how the IKN authority is talking about them, because provincial government is now kind of being bypassed, and all these regencies like PPU and Kota, Kartanegara, and these areas are also sort of non-communicated very well. And then to the lower level, it's even, how do you say, it's creating some kind of feeling of resistance, which is totally not productive for the organic urbanization that should happen beyond, when suppose IKN ever finishes the construction and starts functioning, then it has to relate to the surrounding areas. So I think that is one big problem. And of course, until that kind of city functioning with the surrounding areas together, then people in Jakarta cannot imagine what kind of a city life is there. So it's very difficult, of course. I perfectly understand.
One more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about idea of the smart city?
Mm.
So, what do you think about the infrastructure if IKN so still ongoing or stuck? The other reason, like,
I think what I saw now was this transport, like a little tram system that they want to create, and like electric buses. That's the only thing, maybe very concretely, they try to introduce with Chinese capital. But as I said, smart city is a concept that depends really on electricity. You need a digitalization of everything, which means you need a stable provision of electricity, and electricity needs either bigger power plant, transmission lines, or the stations, backup systems when something goes wrong. And those are, I don't think is there. Only thing they are doing is building lots of dams, inside, outside, only for water consumption and electricity also to some extent. I think they talk about also developing another one in North Kalimantan. So it becomes a kind of translocal projects that, it will affect everywhere. But concretely speaking, I think to make everything smart, which means everything electric, would take time. And as coming back to my original point, I mean, until how many years it would take to make people to be able to afford electric cars or electric, beyond the IKN area, because these infrastructures need everything in between. Also, if you want to ride an electric car in IKN and want to go to Balikpapan or Samarinda, you need a station, charging, and these are not something that you can do only there. You have to have everything in place. So in that sense, yes, I am a little bit skeptical about everything. And if you go to Nusantara, how do you say, master plan, now that 3-city concept, like Samarinda will be the center of renewable energy, Balikpapan will be oil and gas continuously, and IKN as a smart city. But I think in between, you need some vigilance in between areas, and that is not there. Then that's problem. That's why I think we are focusing on this frontier concept, because that connects. We say, okay, this, we have to see it in more, how do you say, like, beyond the city demarcation. And that is what's the most important thing, maybe for now, how I see it. And that goes to maybe Galu's question about, how to then do that when people are already beginning to feel uncomfortable against national versus local and between local. And also, I only mentioned those official entities, but of course, Indigenous alliance communities are pretty much getting strong now in the Indigenous politics. Also between different groups of migrants. They are not fighting, there are no like a horizontal conflicts or anything, but then if you talk to different groups of people, of course, they have different ideas about how they want to benefit from this development. So how to mediate indeed this conversation is, I don't have a concrete answer, actually. I'm not the one who can do it. I don't even speak Bahasa or any, actually people speak a lot of Javanese over there because there are so many transmigrant communities. But how I understood is that there are conversations going on between different groups, especially some villages which are affected by this actually dam or intake project that is really closing some access to some groups of people. So they are really having a kind of common cause to struggle against that. Maybe I think in the end to create some kind of forum to address each challenge, for example, water or land or social access to some infrastructure, so like a betterment of maybe school, roads. I think these are the kind of things that we can think about in order to establish possibility of some conversations between different groups of people. And the land, well, practically land grab, if it happens or not, right? It already happened, I think, that when IKN was demarcated, it took quite a bit of land from, not only from the Sepaku sub-district, the village area, but also concessions from the industry forestry company that we were talking with the company people that they also had to deal with radical reduction of the production areas for their business. And they have to also maintain this conservation area that's under the Ministry of Environment. And then that is also kind of overlapping with the IKN. And that is also the space of contention to some extent. And land grabs very concretely happens with the Bali community, the indigenous community, because they are first already advised to be relocated to somewhere else, and they wanted to stay. So what they are negotiating right now is whether they are going to turn itself to the cultural village, kind of Pampang village, the I visited also, the kind of, yeah, showing that they are indigenous and then for tourism purposes. But that also changes quite a lot the way that people live. So it's a bit like not the physical displacement in that sense, but people lose cultural attachment, for example, to the place, especially to the river, because of the dam and intake project. And by the way, those water only goes to IKN. So then the people are kind of squeezed between infrastructure, but that they don't even have the access to the water that is influencing them. So there are this kind of a bit environmental justice issues. I would think about not directly maybe influenced by the land grabs, but it's more about grabbing the control of some groups of people, especially indigenous groups of people, to maintain the way of life. And that is also something that they don't really talk about yet at the authority level. And I think there are a lot of indigenous scholars or activists also try to address this issue. And one more thing that I find interesting within this land dynamic, the market dynamics, is that not so much about the big player come to grab the land, but people themselves start selling and dealing with the land, like a really much more dynamic than, for example, what I know in Brazil. So I think Indonesian people are basically very entrepreneurial. I think they are like, well, now there's opportunity, I'm going to. And then because, yeah, last year I heard a lot about, I heard a lot about selling the land. But this year I heard a lot about renting, because they calculated and say that, it's much better to rent, keep the land, but then now the rent is so high. So it's last year was like a 2 million per month. This year they talk about 9 million a month. It's an insane increase. And I find that super volatile because, like you say, if IKN doesn't really happen in the end, this whole bubble economy will burst. And that in itself will create huge impacts. And I think that's also something that I really want to see how it's going to happen. I think nobody can really predict, but I think what we can do is to understand this local land transaction and rent economy that they, like villagers and entrepreneurs around the area create. Now there is one big entrepreneur that we met, Haji, I forgot his name, Haji Amir. Haji Amir. He owns like a whole shopping, like a market area, and how many businesses and houses over there, but like a thriving, no? So there are some people, local business people who can really thrive from this process, but we hardly know also the effects of that kind of inequalities that will appear from this process. So I think it will be interesting to see this. Now, because of the 17th of August, I heard a lot about, like a business boom, but I think next year I want to go back, or maybe you go back regularly, I don't know, or next year, next 5 years, 10 years, how it's going to happen, I think it will be in relation to land prices and rent prices. I will be very interested in knowing, investigate.
Okay, is there any other question? Mbak Septi. Mbak Septi is one of the team member who research on IKN also.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations and thank you very much, Professor Kei Otsuki. One point you described is mapping underlying drivers and actor following investment, frontier, and urban politics. Maybe you can tell for us what finding that you reached when you research in IKN related to the point that you described to the mapping of underlying driver and actor following investment, frontier and urban politics. And there is any statement that the transfer of capital is inseparable from the interest of Indonesian capitalist political economy, which will exacerbate environmental damage and neglect the existence of Nusantara local communities. What do you think about this statement for you? Statement. There is statement that the transfer of capital is inseparable from the interests of Indonesian capitalist political economy, which will exacerbate environmental damage and neglect the existence Nusantara local communities. What do you think about this statement? And number two, before you present that Brazil is a newly planned city led to the opening of a new highway, which led to the more roads, settlement, land sales, and expansion of deforestation. Is this condition phase 2 in IKN? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the first part, at the moment, yes, I will agree with your statement in a sense that like I think our analysis now is indeed how to connect local Nusantara communities, like that area, with the new city, so that there is no such a discrepancy between futuristic smart forest city and existing local communities. That actually, by the way, it's not only about there, you know, always this kind of smart city, new city comes to somewhere, then always leads to some extent displacement of existing communities or influences on the, how do you say, the negative ways in such a way that, you know, the local communities have to sacrifice, for example, like water, especially, but also cultural aspects of it if we talk about Bali communities. So those are the kind of things, to me, it also links to urban politics, because how people struggle for control in the end. It is about who is actually really have a say in making decisions. And at the moment, it does sound like that the national government has its own agenda, apart from what everyone around the area really envisions. And that's this connection should be solved. And especially if we talk about, for example, desa heads, you know, like a heads of village governments, I find it interesting because they are very worried about losing their democracy, their own autonomy of electing heads, because now the government wants them to turn themselves into urban, so karurahan, and that is not something they want. And so there are some conflicts already I hear all over when I talk to this government. And if I talk to also like somebody like a Fitriansa from the provincial government, he also started to talk about how we re-establish the concept of local autonomy, that we want to be, to some extent, have our own decisions made in conversation with IKN. So IKN, like authority has to also be there, a bit more present with the local government, not only, demanding what they have to deliver, but they want to be a part of the conversation of how the whole area would develop. So I think those are the kind of politics that I think we want to see. And when the whole area is in conversation and talking about what kind of investments they really need, investors will come. But now I think the problem is a little bit too risky for investors. If I'm an investor from the Netherlands, I wouldn't invest now because I don't know who to talk to. And if I only talk to IKN authority, I only see these empty buildings who, nobody's living there. So it's too scary to invest a lot of money. And then and in relation to land ownership, for example, that is not very clear whose land it is when you want to invest in somewhere. Then that's also risky because once you establish your business, somebody else starts claiming, I don't know that. So if I talk to my, like a partner in the Netherlands who was initially interested in investing in IKN, as usually also the company is like, oh no, I'm waiting. Like we don't want to be involved at the moment. We don't know. And the World Bank and all this kind of big international lenders also, they don't want to be touching the city yet because if it doesn't work, then it's a waste of money. So, but then it all comes from this kind of, okay, the city is going well together with all the areas, because I think if the one authority starts saying that this is the city, the new city, I think it's not going to work. So that's why we have to say kind of loud, we need the new vision for the whole region, including all the different stakeholders and also decision makers at different levels, that everyone is actually not critical, in IKN per se. But they are critical of not being consulted, not being given opportunities to also contribute to the development. So I think in order not to exacerbate further this feeling of uneasiness, I think it's important to have that conversation between different governance actors. I think that will be my thinking at the moment. And what was the other question? I forgot. Was it okay? My answer? Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Septi. It's almost 12 actually. Yeah, one more. Oh, Imam. Please, Imam.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Dini, and congratulations, and thank you for your interesting presentation. My short question is about how your perspective about Balikpapan Bay coastal area, and actually about coastal community, because when I read your point in your presentation, it's not mentioned about coastal area gitu. And I think even though Balikpapan Bay is in outside area in IKN, I think the impact of IKN to Balikpapan is very big problem. Thank you, Prof. K.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard about this coastal communities from Dini last time, that then it intrigued me also indeed, because I did not know about the problem. And it's something that I need to visit or need to know a little bit more about the exact impacts. What I think is interesting about Balikpapan itself is that because IKN is not really finished, now that everyone goes to Balikpapan. They are building another airport very close by. They built a huge bridge just to get all the government people go back and forth and not even open for public. So I think Balikpapan itself is becoming very, how do you say, influenced by this IKN development and infrastructure development. And I heard also from a local government official that they are thinking about diverting water from there to IKN because the dams are not enough. The water is not enough. So again, the problem of water is leading Balikpapan to be affected, like their waterways to be affected. And I think it's going to be maybe affected more for the coastal communities, which I don't know much about. But I think, as I said about the Sulawesi, how much mining will be there. The bottom line is, indeed, the IKN itself is going to be maybe sustainable, but it's going to affect quite a lot of other areas for its sustainability. So, by making everywhere else unsustainable situations. And that's something that we really have to address, by saying that, okay, this has a massive translocal effect or mass, how do you say, like a creation of all the sacrificed zones around it. So I think Balikpapan Bay indeed is one of those areas or zones that we have to maybe investigate further. And in order to alleviate the situations, what we can do. I don't know, maybe you have to tell me, but together with the Balikpapan Authority, how to influence the kind of decisions made by IKN Authority, how to go back to the issue of how to talk with the different groups. I think that will be the key, because that's the indigenous communities also, right? The Balikpapan, the fishery, yeah. So I think those are the unknown cases, or not very well-known cases, because the Balik people within the Sepaku areas or right close to the IKN area, they are pretty much getting attention. But those people who you mentioned are not even getting that much media attention. Or if you see, for example, Dutch news reporting IKN problem, international media, then they say, oh, they are massively constructing something. But I interviewed the head of Balik in next village in Sepaku. Then that's it. They don't go to very far away places. But then internationally, people will get that kind of message like, okay, that's it. Or if you say, oh, there are more people in different areas really affected, it will become more, powerful, I think, and also more comprehensive understanding of what a city does. So that'll be great. I think it will be nice to know more about your research, actually, for us to. Thank you.
Or maybe we can collaborate on that. Okay, so is there any other questions? Enough? Okay. Well, thank you all for your participation in today's guest lecture on following frontiers of the forest city and discussion of the implication on relocating Indonesia's capital to Ibu Kota Nusantara. We are very grateful for Professor Kei Otsuki for sharing her valuable insights and research finding. So as we conclude today's insightful session, we will now have some closing remarks from the head of Economic, Political, and Strategic Issues Research Group of BRIN, Dr. Irin Gayatri. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kei, and also our head of center, Atika, and Dini as moderator, also seminar team, and our audience here from researcher from BRIN, and also our guest Pak Galuh and Pak Andi. So this would be a start for our cooperation, we hope, and also we really appreciate your insights and also your presentation. It brings us new perspective with regard to the how we should see urban problems. Because usually we will focus on the conflict, natural resources competition, actors, governance, but also we try to look it into from the other perspective. Know that there is a connection to do all that from the urban issues and development, of course. We really do hope to meet you again sometimes online or offline. And thank you for this great discussion. Hoping to see you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mbak Irin. So yeah, as we move forward, let us continue. Let's just like Mbak Atika said in the first place, it is very crucial to talk about, to keep discussing on IKN, because it help us to identify the unplanned aspects of the planned city. By doing so, we can hopefully the government will hear or read our research, so it can be available input for their next policy on IKN. Thank you again, once again, for being here today. We'll look forward to seeing you in the future events. Oh, Mas Rido said that we are going to have photo. Yeah. In here or outside? In here, okay. Okay. So thank you again. I'll close